There are 10 steps to service success. Number 1, recognition. Number 2, identification of the problems. Number 3, a plan of action. Number 4, an allocation of resources. Number 5, prioritization of execution. Number 6, the training of personnel. Number 7, the recruiting of suitable personnel. Number 8, good communications. Number 9, then the follow-up to the execution. And number 10, finally, to begin all over again in your attempt to improve the quality of your service. There are customer satisfaction strategies that can be used, and they involve the following. Number 1, knowing your customer, knowing who they are. Number 2, that you never blame the customer. Number 3, the clear use of communication. Number 4, that you organise your procedures. Number 5, that you are able to undo what it is that the customer has done to himself or to herself. Number 6, remember, never use business jargon when talking to a customer, as you may confuse them. Number 7, a trade-off in time management is essential in personal contact situations. Number 8, to use employee job performance criteria. Number 9, reduce time where service is expected to be fast. And number 10, to invoke a sincere appreciation of your customers. Always thank them for their time, their money, and possibly their repeated custom. So customer care, caring about your customers, providing customer quality, offering good customer service. What you need to consider are the following. Who is the customer? You see, a customer is actually a buyer who resells. What is a consumer? A consumer is buying for themselves. An end user. What is an end user? An end user is using what has been bought for them, possibly as a gift. A child might be bought something by their parent, for example. So the company should have a mission. The mission of the organisation, what might it be? It should be to produce only what it is that the customer wants, and ideally at a price that they are pleased to be able to afford. You should only provide a service that satisfies, that indeed delights customer requirements, as I implied earlier. So putting the customer first, putting the customer at the very centre of your thinking in the organisation and running of your business. Some companies take that to an extreme, which is called customisation. What that means is that they're adapting their product slightly to suit the individual needs of each customer. An example of this has in the past been the company BAE, British Aerospace, and there was a time when they built a 100-seater aircraft and they could customise that. What that meant was the exterior was identical in each instance, but inside the plane they could maximise to 100 seats for one airline. They could make it 80 seats for a different airline who wanted to charge perhaps a slightly higher price to customers by giving them better quality of legroom in the cabin, for example. But they could also produce versions for individual customers who are very wealthy. Those who, for example, would want the interior of the plane divided into a lounge area, a bedroom, and indeed an area where they could even have a shower. So to customise the product, slightly different to each individual, provides excellent customer service. I'll provide another example for you now. I've given you British Aerospace. Now, Marks & Spencer. Marks and Spencer have this belief that they impart to their employees, and that is that the customer is always right. Open brackets, even when they're wrong, close brackets. An example of this would be customers who buy clothing from Marks and Spencer on a Friday and may join a queue of people to return that clothing on a Monday. What they have done, in fact, they've worn the clothing over the weekend, nothing wrong with it, they're just returning it and wanting their money back. Clearly, there is the need for training of employees. This is essential if you want to carry out excellent customer service. I'll give you other examples that are quite famous in their time. A lady bought some honey, and when she got home and went to use the honey, she opened the jar and inside she found a dead bee in the jar of honey. She complained to her supermarket. They returned the product to the manufacturer, who obtained her name and address. And a week later, she received at home a box containing 50 jars of honey, all in perfect condition. Also, a £100 voucher that she could use to shop at that particular supermarket, all from the manufacturer to keep that customer for the future, and to prove to her that that introduction of the bee into that first jar was just an anomaly, and the 50 jars that she received were all in perfect condition. Sadly, there was another occasion when a famous chocolate bar manufacturer making bars of chocolate, a lady came and bought a bar from a shop, took it home and found inside was a dead mouse. That was a far more difficult situation to try to restore her confidence in that particular company. Okay, there are many ways of a company enabling its customers to make contact. One is to actually have a response mechanism within their advertising. That can be a cut-out coupon to complete, name and address, and to send back. Can be to call a particular number, might be a dedicated line. Could be to visit their website, for example. So customers can respond in these ways. That can be on the packaging of the product as well as in the advertising. Some companies, of course, use call centres. Famous examples would be Aviva, the insurance company. So they provide insurance services, and they have had call centres in India. They've announced fairly recently that they're returning the call centre back to the United Kingdom. Again, only this week, the banking services company Santander have made a similar decision. They're closing down their call centres in India and they're going to reopen them back in the UK. In both instances, it's because of customer complaint, customers not being satisfied with the service they're receiving when phoning to an international destination. Those call centres are being recalled to the UK, and they're now going to change the name to customer centres rather than call centres. So, as I said earlier, some companies have introduced a philosophy in the running of their business, and that involves having their employees regarded as internal customers in addition to when they sell their products or services to external customers. The belief is that when you have an external customer, you respect them, you look after them, you treat them well. What companies are wanting now is that for an employee who does part of a job and then passes it on to the next employee, that they do their very best in what they do before they pass on to the customer, the next person in the chain of activities, the chain of events, and that person being another employee. They should treat them as an internal customer in a similar way that they would be expected to treat the external customer. Examples of services. So, hotels, hospitals, restaurants, educational services, and of course airlines. These are all examples of services. These are the invisibles, the intangibles that are surrounding a product. A product is tangible, visible, you can pick it up, hold it, you know its size, its shape, its weight, its colour. But services are invisible. They are in effect just in the mind of the consumer. They have a perception, an expectation of what they will receive for the amount of money they're spending. One example would be banks. A bank is quite an intangible service in many respects, but do banks operate as well as they could in relation to the customer? Might be a man or a woman working in a city such as London, and at lunchtime they need to go to their bank. They go to the bank, they join a queue, and the queue is quite long, takes them quite some time to get to the front, and then there are one or two people at the counter to deal with them. And so when their problem is dealt with, or they pay a check-in or whatever they do, then they leave, they grab a sandwich, go back to the office. Half of their lunch hour has been wasted. It's been taken by being in a queue. And yet if they've been able to go to the bank mid-morning, when they were at work, there were 4 people at the counter, ready to serve hardly any customers at all, because obviously it's during the mid-morning of the working day. So banks appear not to have got their customer service right. They allow their employees to take lunch at the same time as their customers are able to come into the bank. They have a shortage of employees available when their customers are there in a queue waiting to be served. Another point for you, senior management. In many companies, senior management are always in internal meetings during the working day. So it means that they are never available to see or to speak to customers, particularly those who may have complaints to make. Again, banks would fall into that category.